You watch the weather, you listen at the weather, you look up at the sky, you look down on the ground. And I said, everything's changing. I said, it's changing. I said, I know God said it wouldn't be, He was not going to flood the earth no more. And that's true, but yet still floods are still coming.
Rising is a multifaceted, multimedia outreach and research exhibition. It combines fine art, literal and abstract photography with oral histories of people's perspectives of how things have changed along the coast of North Carolina. This project was inspired by a lifetime of listening to my dad's stories. He would sit on the porch in Buxton and tell me of things that had changed in his world, you know, where the beach used to be from the lighthouse, or how they used to get to the Outer Banks from Englehart, and you know, started to think about how many stories there are like this. And when we were out in the field interviewing commercial fishermen for something completely different, they'd say, well, I've seen fish here in the last 10 years that I'd never seen before in my whole life. So we started to hear these anecdotes and went on a helicopter ride to do some photography, and all the pieces started to come together that we needed to explore change and people's perceptions of it.
I think that oral histories are a really compelling way to delve deep into different subjects, and it was an appropriate medium for this research to better understand what people's perspectives are. It would provide a more rich perspective than just quantitative data. So the oral histories were quite in-depth. We had some oral histories that were 5 hours long. That allowed us an opportunity to get to know the individuals, to become comfortable with them, and really for us to explore a variety of topics about change.
And that's what I remember reading one time too about sea level rise. That a lot of times you can't, if it's fair weather, it's not real noticeable. Yeah. But if you have a situation as a hurricane, northeaster, a whole lot of rain, that's when you can really tell that the water's up.
I'm Ben Cahoon. I've been an architect on the Outer Banks for 30 years, and I'm currently serving as the mayor of Nags Head. And so I've really enjoyed offering input. As an architect, I was also on the design team here at the Coastal Studies Institute, and so I knew that this space was designed for just this kind of exhibit. So after I'd seen the exhibit a couple of times and they were looking for an Outer Banks location, and I was excited to have it come to a place on the Outer Banks so that locals could see it, I thought about this space and how ideal it would be, and the exhibit really shows very nicely here.
So my role has been to be the community filter, living in a community where the concept of sea level rise and changing landscapes is very sensitive. I hope I helped shape the wording and the voice to be an open discussion. Everybody's perspective is valuable, and we all learn from each other. So I am thankful for the opportunity to be a part of the project and to be that community filter.
Rising is really important because bringing these concepts and visual evidence of what is happening along North Carolina's coast is so important. There are a lot of people who may not necessarily believe a scientist who comes in and says this is happening, but when they see it with their own eyes and they hear these testimonies with their own ears, it becomes a much more powerful and convincing experience than I could ever do with a graph.
I think that sea level rise and climate change is one of the greatest threats facing the coast of North Carolina. And it's really necessary for us to start accepting that as a fact and to plan and prepare and to adapt as a community. There's an economically significant piece to our coastal communities, but also there's an incredibly important cultural piece to this. In order for those places to persist, we have to lay some plans, put some plans in place that allow them to thrive.